We are about to begin with the third technical session, Power Projection 2047. All are requested to please get connected through their devices and stay online.
All participants are requested to post their queries in the chat section. Our expert faculties will address to it at the end of the session if time permits.
This conference is powered by Upstocks and Rapido and partnered by Coffee Clan.
All the participants are requested to attend the entire session as the attendance will be taken during session timeout. The e-certificates will be awarded only on the basis of the attendance.
Vikasa Vadodara has launched an innovative and interactive platform at community.vikasa.org, which will be used by all Western Region branches to update students about forthcoming programs and events. We invite all Vikasa branches of Western Region and students to join this community. This platform will be an excellent opportunity for the students to discuss their issues and experience and resolve their doubts.
The mementos to the faculties and paper presenters for the conference will be delivered to their address.
Hello everyone. I hope you all are doing well this morning. I am Riya Modi.
And I am Rohan Revani. We welcome you once again to the second day of this two-day CA Students Conference. We hope you all have enjoyed the informative, technical, and special sessions yesterday and are looking forward for something interesting on your plate.
As quoted by APJ Abdul Kalam sir, when learning is found useful, creativity blossoms. When creativity blossoms, thinking emanates. When thinking emanates, knowledge is fully lit. When knowledge is lit, economy flourishes.
Very true, Ria. We all know India has always played a significant role towards world peace, growth, and development.
अमेंडमेंट्स का नगमा है, अटेम्प्ट्स की रवानी है, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी और कुछ भी नहीं, लेजेंड्स की कहानी है.
Wow, 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 wow. To provide valuable inputs and guidance, we have with us CA Nilesh Vikamse, past president, ICAI, as the chairman of this session. CA Hitesh Agrawal, immediate past chairman of Vadodara branch of ICAI. Ms. Janvi Bhave, MCM, Vikasa Vadodara. Our paper presenters for this session are Ms. Venu Sharma, Ms. Veronica Khosla, and Ms. Saloni Jain.
Now I request CA Hitesh Agrawal for his opening remarks.
Thank you, MOC. I welcome the virtually sitting dignitaries on the dais, CA Nilesh Vikamse, past president of ICAI, Miss Janvi Bhave, managing committee member of Baroda Vikasa, and the women empowerment, our today's three paper presenters, Miss Vinu Sharma, Miss Veronica Khosla, and Miss Saloni Jain. I welcome all of you for this second day of the CA Students Virtual Conference 2020. Friends, the topics selected by the Baroda Vikasa are apt for the today's era. The topics for the today's by the paper presenter are on the economy, that is on monetary and the fiscal policies, post-COVID economy and GIG economy. I once again thank you all the paper presenter and all the best for the wonderful presentation they are going to make. Thank you. Thank you. Over to MOC.
Thank you, sir.
We are fortunate to have with us Sri Nilesh Vikamse as chairman of session to provide valuable guidance and inputs in this technical session. Sri Nilesh Vikamse is a person of professional vigor, a selfless hard worker, and down-to-earth personality. He has been elected to the Central Council for 3 consecutive terms. He is the trustee of Vipassana International Academy and Few Educational Trust in Mumbai. Thank you, sir.
We have witnessed few of the recent changes in monetary and fiscal policy of India in the last 3 decades. To throw some more light on this topic, we have with us Ms. Venu Sharma, from Chandigarh to present paper.
India will be an important pillar of post coronavirus global economic recovery. The roadmap for winning the battle against pandemic lies in countries restarting the economy and strengthening cooperative federalism. Post reset COVID in World Economic Order and India's role will be explained by Ms. Veronica Khosla from Vadodara.
Rohan, do you know how is the rapidly growing gig economy shaping careers of the younger? How the gig economy is reshaping careers for the next generation? To let us know more about this, we have with us Saloni Jain from Surat to present a paper on gig economy, remote working, and renting assets as next generation life.
May I now request Sri Nilesh Vikamse, chairman of the session, to take the charge. Friends, there is some technical issue and Nilesh sir would be joining soon. Vikasa Baroda has launched an innovative and interactive platform at community.vikasa.org, which will be used by all Western branches to update students about forthcoming programs and events. We invite all Vikasa branches of Western region and students to join this community. This platform will be an excellent opportunity for students to discuss their issues and experience and resolve their doubts.
This conference is powered by Upstocks and Rapido and partnered by Coffee Clan. There is some technical issue and Nilesh sir will be joining in 2-3 minutes.
All participants are requested to post their queries in the chat section. Our expert faculties will address to it at the end of the session if time permits. The mementos to the faculties and paper presenters for the conference will be delivered to their address.
Baroda has launched an innovative and interactive platform at community.vikasa.org, which will be used by all Western region branches to update students about forthcoming programs and events. We invite all Vikasa branches of Western region and students to join this community. This platform will be an excellent opportunity for the students to discuss their issues and experience and resolve their doubts.
This conference is powered by Upstocks and Rapido and partnered by Coffee Clan.
ના મોકલશે યાર પેલા આખું પેજ બનાવી દીધું બાબુ
नहीं पर एमआई लगे इनवाइट करवाऊंगी एमआई कहीं नाखवान जरूर होती है तो प्रोफाइल का से जाके ना પેલા સ્પીચ માટે છે આમાં એડિટ
તો ઈ બુક માટે ગૂગલ પરથી મેં લઈ લીધું હતું
બસ
वो बाद में वैलिडिटी रही है
हाँ
मोड ऑफ फ्रेंड्स के लिए हाँ तो बताओ
ये
तेरा थ्री है
अरे मैंने बोला उनको बस आकर बोला कि
Friends, Nilesh sir would be joining soon. Until then, I now request paper presenters to start the session.
We have with us Ms. Venu Sharma from Chandigarh to present a paper on monetary and fiscal policy of India in the last 3 decades.
Good morning everyone. My name is Venu Sharma and I am a CA final student. And my topic for today's presentation is Monetary and Fiscal Policy of India in last 3 decades and a way forward. So here we begin with what are fiscal policies. Fiscal policies deal with government revenue and government expenditure. When the government receives more and spend less, it creates surplus. When the government spends more than it has received, it creates deficit in the economy. So in the next slide, we will talk about what are monetary policies. Monetary policies are the microeconomic policies laid by central bank, which is Reserve Bank.
Miss Venu, can you please show the slides? We are unable to see the slides. You need to show the slide, share screen, right?
Okay, share screen.
There is
I
share.
have already shared the screen and allowed the mic and the camera to.
No, there is share screen option. Can you see the share screen option?
Which side?
It's near the audio button. It's besides the audio button, share screen button.
Okay, yes, I've shared it. Okay.
Camera, audio, then share screen.
Yes, okay, it's done. Okay. Shall I start?
We are unable to see the screen. Yeah, now it is visible. Now it is visible.
No, shall I start? Okay.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, please go to the, I mean, slides. I mean, you are right now in this mode only, this screen only. You have
Yes.
to go to the slide, right?
Okay, मैं अपनी you want me to open my PPT?
PPT, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
एक minute, just let me start it with, right?
Yeah, yeah, perfect, perfect.
Is the camera here?
So now it's being done. Shall I start? Shall I start?
Yes, you can start.
Okay.
You can start. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Venu Sharma and I'm a CA final student. And my topic for today's presentation is Monetary and Fiscal India in last 3 decades and a way forward. So here we begin with what are fiscal policies. Fiscal policies deal with government revenue and government expenditure. When the government receives more and spend less, it creates surplus. When the government spend more than it has earned, it creates deficit in the economy. So the next slide is about what are monetary policies. Monetary policies are the microeconomic policies led by the central bank, which is Reserve Bank of India. The Reserve Bank of India manages money supply and interest rate in the economy. The Reserve Bank of India uses instruments like repo rate, reverse repo, CRR, SLR, moral persuasion, credit limiting, etc. to manage money supply in the economy. From the next slide, we will see what were the fiscal policies and the monetary in the last 3 decades. The first slide is about fiscal policy for the decade 1990 to 1999. The following chart shows the bifurcation of government revenue and government expenditure in the year 1990 to 91. From the following chart, we can see the share of direct tax in total government revenue composition was 13%, indirect tax 65%, and non-tax revenue composition was 22%. The next slide is about the most strategic reform in the history of Indian economy, the liberalization, privatization, and the globalization policies, or it can also be termed as the LPG policies. While these policies may look very unique now, but they were very revolutionary for that decade. But why we needed such LPG policies? Prior to year 1990, consent of at least 80 agencies were required to open a manufacturing unit. And state would decide what to produce, how much to produce, and at what charge and at what price customers will be charged. The government, in the order to open the economy and correct the adverse balance of payment, came up with LPG policies. The positive outcome of these LPG policies were that the India GDP growth rate increased. The India GDP in 1990 to 91 was 1.1% as compared to more than 7% from 2015-16 onwards. There was increase in employment, there was increase in per capita income, and the export, which stood at USD 26.38 billion as on October 2019, are the result of these LPG policies. The negative outcome of these LPG policies on our economy were there was rise in price, there was rise in inflation, there was rise in fiscal deficit, and as the government spent more on the non-development activities, there was rise in fiscal deficit, and that too leads to adverse balance of payment. The next slide talk about the stance of RBI for the decade 1990 to 1999. As there was more money supply in the economy, the RBI came up with tightened monetary policies to manage the excess money supply in the economy. The RBI increased the cash margin from 133% to 200% within 1 month. The RBI imposed surcharge on interest on bank credit for import. The exchange rate for the rupee was downgraded by 18%. The ceiling on long-term interest rate and restriction on debenture interest were eliminated from July 91. So this was all about the fiscal and the monetary policy for the decade 1990 to 1999. From the next slide, we will see what were the monetary and the fiscal policy for the decade 2000-2009. The following chart shows the composition of revenue and expenditure of the government in the year 2000-2001. From the following chart, we can analyze that the share of direct tax in total revenue composition increased by 13% from the last decade. Similarly, the other chart shows the bifurcation of the government expenditure. 12% on defense, 36% on interest, 10% on subsidies, and 41% on other revenue expenditure. The next slide is about the monetary policy for the decade 2000-2009. It was that era when the government and the economy was harvesting the benefit of the LPG policies, and government was on the path of opening the economy and they restricting all the regulations and licensing system. So the RBI enabled a shift from direct to indirect instruments of monetary policy. The enactment of fiscal responsibility and the budget management to provide fiscal discipline and flexibility to the monetary policy. The Reserve Bank of India placed greater emphasis on the integration of money market with other market segment. Now, for the decade 2000-2009, short-term instruments and short-term rate became instrument to signal the stance of RBI. Now, everyone see the short-term interest rate to witness and to analyze the stance of RBI for the monetary policies. So this was all for the fiscal and the monetary policy for the decade 2000-2009. The next slide shows the fiscal policy for the decade 2000-2019, and it's our last decade. So in this chart, we can see the bifurcation of government revenue and government expenditure. By analyzing the chart, we can see that the share of direct tax in the total revenue composition increased by 22% from the last decade. Now, the government was getting more revenue from its direct share. The government get 32% from indirect tax and 20% from non-revenue income. Similarly, the other chart shows the bifurcation of the government for the decade 2009-2019. Now the next slide talk about the monetary policy for the decade 2009-2019. During the year 2009, the whole world faced global financial crisis. The bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers was the climax of the subprime mortgage crisis, which slowed down the economies of worldwide. The RBI, in the order to bring more transparency and accountability in fixing its monetary policy, constituted Monetary Policy Committee, which would meet quarterly every year to review its monetary policy. The RBI evolved its multiplier indicator approach. The Reserve Bank of India introduced a new base rate system replacing its earlier benchmark prime lending rate. The Reserve Bank of India constituted Financial Stability and Development Corporation to promote financial sector performance. The stressed balance sheets of bank and upsurge in banking fraud by 7 times in the last 5 years forced the RBI to enable a system of micro-prudential surveillance system to unearth any potential fraud at the earliest. Last but not the least, a way forward for the Indian economy. $5 trillion economy is one of the benchmark given by our Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi. $5 trillion economy of India by 2024. There are certain reforms which are needed in our country, in our economy, to go toward the $5 trillion economy by 2024. Number 1 is financing the infrastructure project through public-private partnership. Usually, infrastructure projects have a long gestation period. This leads to blockage of funds of the government. By sharing its responsibility with private entity, the government will save a huge amount of its funds. Reforms are needed in the pension and the money market. Money market in India is still in developing phase. By fully utilizing the money market potential and making money market instrument within the reach of common man, the government and the economy can grow. Providing ease of business to the manufacturing industry. Many South Asian countries, particularly Singapore, have outperformed India when it comes to providing the sound business environment to the manufacturing sector. And the Singapore economy has given boom because of the manufacturing sector growth. So providing ease of business to our manufacturing sector is very imperative. India ranked 63rd out of 190 countries. Still, There is a lot of improvement needed in providing sound business environment to our manufacturing sector. Transition of focus from the supply side to the demand side. Till now, the government has always looked up to the supply side constraint. Every relief package, every subsidy of government have always focused on the supply side constraint. The government now must look up at the supply side to increase the aggregate demand in the economy. Policy reform must aim at the digitalization and accelerating the growth of MSME sector. The MSME sector growth is very imperative for the GDP growth. China, for example, has initially focused on the small scale and the cottage industries and later become manufacturing hub for the world. So, MSME growth is needed by providing them quality and quantity resources, power, relief, subsidies, and credit availability to the MSME is very imperative so that we can reach our that we can reach our benchmark, most sorted benchmark for our Indian economy, $5 trillion economy. Thank you all. This was all from my side, and I want to thank Vikasa Baroda particularly because they have given me this opportunity. Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Venu.
Okay.
Now I request Nilesh Vikamse to give his opening remarks.
Thank you, Rohan. Can you hear me? Am I visible? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are visible and we can hear your voice.
Thank you. Yeah, it's indeed a pleasure to be part of the CA virtual conference, students' virtual conference, organized by the Baroda branch, Vikasa, and titled as Aptitude, Attitude, and Altitude, the way to transform to the next world order. My dear student friends, this title is not only apt for India to transition to the next world order, but it's even absolutely apt for the CA students. So these three words combine what is required for a CA student, right? First and foremost is the aptitude on the subjects. Second and most important is the attitude. Attitudes towards your training, attitudes toward the examinations, a very positive attitude. As all of us are aware, attitude makes all the difference in life. So this, in my view, this is the most critical factor, which will take to an altitude. Your career altitude. Number one, the aptitude and the attitude will take you to your own zenith of your career. And throughout life, I think both will have to be going hand in hand, your aptitude and attitude. There will be no shortcuts anywhere as far as both these factors are concerned. Let me compliment the Baroda branch and the Vikasa. Thank you, immediate past chairman Hitesh Agarwal, for your kind words. Vinod Pahilwani, the Vikasa chairman, Janhavi Bhave, the managing committee member of Vikasa, Harsh Vekaria, Arpan, Minesh, and the MOCs, Ria and Rohan. It's a very, very tough time I think all of us are going through in the pandemic. Completely new way of working from home. Lot of fear in the air. Hardly any physical meetings, large meetings happening other than immediate family and all. And even I think social festivals, Diwali, whether it is Ganpati, whether it is now the coming New Year, at least in Maharashtra, there is a night curfew by 11 o'clock or 11:30 people have to close. So I don't know what type of New Year we'll be celebrating with our family and friends. So that's the way it is right now. And despite these challenges, the Baroda branch thought it fit to have this conference on the virtual mode, where students are participating, and we've got fantastic, I would say, students who volunteered to speak. I'm told there were almost 50 paper writers who had submitted their papers, and out of which 12 were chosen. So again, I would say it is a fantastic work done, and I compliment the Vikasa Baroda for the community, .vikasa.org, what they've started, where the students can connect, they can visit any, see what all programs are going across any of the branches of the ICI across the country. They can log into that. So my compliments to Vikasa Baroda for the initiatives which are being taken by them. Friends, at the initial stage, I will not be speaking on this subject. I would first listen. We have already heard Venu Sharma. She spoke very eloquently on the monetary and fiscal policy of India in the last 3 decades and way forward. And then we'll be having Veronica Khosla and Saloni Jain. But let me just touch upon 2 points. You have seen the recent issues which happened in the examination. Though now I'm not part of the current council, I'm a past president, I was in the last term. Friends, it is very clear, my student friends, that there are some vested interests which are out to, create trouble for the institute. You see, saw how the exams got conducted fantastically well despite the pandemic. All precautions were taken and everything was done. But just to create, I would say just a hullabaloo, I think some vested interests have been working very hard to spoil the name of the institute. Please don't get trapped in that this thing as a student. Please don't give any support to them. Institute is under the Act of Parliament. There is no ownership of the institute. It is done on a voluntary basis. All the, whether it's the Baroda branch, whether it is the Vikasa committee, whether it's the regional council members, central council members, president, all of us are voluntary. Yeah, we have got an executive, which of course is doing its best and it can do better. But so there is no ownership. What is happening is certain vested interests with the private, I would say, interests and are fomenting trouble. So please don't get trapped by that. Another friends through you I want to request is in and around your circle, if you find people joining foreign courses, please guide them. If they're going to go abroad, any of the foreign courses could be meaningful depending on where they want to, go, whether they want to do an MBA or a CPA or a CA of England and Wales or Australia or any other courses. But if they want to remain in India and be in this, I would say accounting profession and I would say finance, accounting and finance side, I think there is no better qualification than the chartered accountant. The foreign degrees are luring because India is a huge market. We've got 130 crore population. We've got a huge chunk of youngsters. So they are trapping. See, they've got all the private sector resources, how to give commissions to people to motivate students in schools, colleges, classes, etc. So please don't get trapped. If you want to remain in India, I think CA is the best course. If you want to go abroad, you may consider any of the courses which you feel appropriate is relevant for you. So in your circle, if you come across somebody, and again, people spreading the word that CA examinations are tough, etc., etc., all that is nonsense. Yeah, it is tough, but as you say, tough times don't last. The tough people do. So we want all our students to be tough people that will help them in their life. So please don't get carried away by any of the fanciful presentations of the foreign university unless you want to go abroad in that particular country. Then I would not, I would say, okay, you do whatever you feel is appropriate. But in India, in this relevant sphere, there is no better course than CA. I will speak later. On other matters, I'll speak when I come to after hearing Veronica and Saloni. So I think let's continue. We have slightly lost time, and please excuse me. I was already there in the backstage at 9:45, 9:50. I was not being able to bring on stage, and this is technology. I joined through an iPad. Yesterday tested everything. Today also joined, but when they sent an invite to come on the main stage, it didn't work through. So again, I had to shift to a laptop and join it. So that's technology for all of us. There could be last minute hiccups, but one has to see if this hiccups one has to overcome and then again continue and participate. So that's life. So over to you, the MOCs. We can hear now Veronica and Saloni in whatever order you decided. Then I'll comment on the subjects after we are through with the three presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With this session, we are sure that we all have ignited the desire in ourselves for achieving success in the right manner.
Now we have with us Ms. Veronica Khosla from Vadodara to present a paper on post-COVID reset in world economic order and India's role.
Veronica, actually, you are not audible.
You're on mute, possibly, Veronica. Unmute yourself.
Veronica, are you using headphone or computer mic? Kindly check your mic. You are unmute, but you are not audible. Are you using computer audio mic or the headphone? Kindly check whether you have unplugged the mic. Hello? No, you are not audible. You are not audible. Sagar, अपना Arpan, we have recording of Veronica.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Or we can start
Veronica,
with Saloni if you want till the time Veronica.
Saloni. Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Saloni
That
is
makes
there.
sense.
Till the time Veronica is able to.
MOC, please announce. Right.
Let's see, Veronica is able to, there's a new, technology, my dear students, this air meet. So the initial hiccups are happening. I'm sure we'll be able to overcome that. Veronica, when you sort of logged in, that time you had, put your this thing on. Huh? There's a pop-up which asks video, this thing, and audio. Just check that whether it is on or off from in your system. MOCs, can we request Saloni to speak in the meantime, or Saloni still not joined in?
Sir, Saloni is also joining within few minutes. She will be there.
Okay. So then I think Veronica, just try if you can speak. Say a few things, Veronica. We can't hear you.
We have with us Saloni, so we would request her to start the paper.
हेलो
Veronica, just figure out what you can do in the
हाँ मैंने
meantime.
भी एक्सेप्ट किया मैं दिख रही हूँ क्या कहीं पे मेरे को बैक स्टेज वाला ऑप्शन नहीं आ रहा है
Sir,
हेलो
Saloni, your video has to be on. I think we can hear you. Your video should be on.
have with us Ms. Saloni Jain from Surat to present a paper on gig economy, remote working, and renting assets as next generation life.
Am I visible?
Yeah.
Yes,
Is the
Yes,
screen
yes,
visible?
Saloni.
Yes, yes.
yes.
It's logging in. Yeah, we can see the screen.
Can you see my PPT?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay. For it matters now, for it matters not how much we own the cars, the houses, or the cash. For it matters now how much we live and love and how we spend our dash. It's an excerpt from the book The Gig Economy, taking more time off and spending the life you want in a way you want by Diane Mulcahy. A very warm and energetic good morning to all the dignitaries and curious audience present out here. I am Saloni Jain and I'll be presenting on the topic gig economy, remote working, renting of assets, life of next generation professionals and chartered accountants. So here I begin. A gig is basically a job or a task that is undertaken for a specified period of time. Conventionally, gig was used to refer to pop singers or musicians. In a gig setup, companies tend towards hiring employees or independent contractual basis rather than having a complete set of employees, albeit creating a more temporary and flexible organizational structures for themselves. One of the things that becomes extremely instrumental in the development of a gig structure is easier accessibility to newer and sophisticated technology to both employers as well as the employees. In a gig structure, the employee hunting for work is expected to market and sell his services online via various platforms to various companies, be it Amazon Flex, Airbnb, Uber, and the list is on and on. See, these are the companies which are playing front foot in the gig economy. Now, let us first understand how does a real gig economy structure works. This is a picture depiction of a gig marketplace model. Let us consider the example of Mr. X, who is having some leisure time and is willing to have some additional income. Firstly, he'll be required to register himself to a website, say Amazon Flex, where he'll be required to provide all the necessary details. Once he's done providing all the details, he'll be sent a prompt by the website host or the website administrator, and also the services that he is required to deliver, and also the details regarding the services he is required to deliver to one of their prospective clients, say Mrs. Y. Once he's done delivering the services, Mrs. Y will make the necessary payment to website host, who in turn will make the necessary payment to Mr. X after deducting all the necessary commission or brokerage or say any other form of income. And this is particularly how a basic or typical gig structure works. Now, things remain incomplete without first understanding the statistics revolving around the gig structure. Firstly, talking about the giant, one of the giant countries in the globe, that is the US economy. I am fetching the data directly from the Zeti.com and its 2019 statistics, which clearly says 36% of the US workforce, figuring around 57 million people, were primarily or secondarily or directly or indirectly contributing to the overall jobs. 40% of the US workforce is earning almost 40% of its total income through the gig work or running errands. 37% of the freelancers, including the consultants, gig service providers, who are generally aged between 21 to 36 or 38 years, are indulged in the gig structure. According to one of the reports of the Forbes magazine, gig economy is expanding three times faster than the entire US workforce. Talking about the Indian scenario, India is considered to be the fifth largest economy when it comes to flexi staffing or temporary staffing, after considering US, China, Brazil, and Japan. India ranks 7th in the talent pool of science and engineering graduates and even the accounting graduates. The size of gig economy is considered to expand at a CAGR of 17% annually, expected to generate an overall gross revenue of $455 billion by 2023. Now, gig economy or gig structure is becoming a preferential paradigm because of the various benefits it offers. Starting with flexibility, it offers flexibility to employers in terms of he's not required to have a permanent set of employees. Cost and resource savings, as the employer is not required to invest heavily in training employees or having a proper office or furniture setup. The employers are able to tap the global market, crossing the local boundaries, and are able to hire more of learned and skilled employees. The employee is expected to wear the hat of entrepreneur and is also provided with the perks of enjoying or checking out the gigs as per his own will. Gig structure majorly is more dynamic than the conventional organizational structures. Despite various benefits it is offering, gig structure, many of the employers and employees are still rethinking its selection because of the various cons it has, starting with the lack of benefits on terms of employees are not covered by various health and insurance protection that generally a traditional employee gets. Inconsistent income on the part of employees is to earn more, he is required to work more, sometimes also resulting in burnout and sometimes resulting in unsteady or inconsistent income. Here, the employee is not directly interacting with the humans, rather he is communicating to the complex algorithms, thereby sometimes leaving with himself the feeling of loneliness or isolation or seclusion. As there is no direct person to whom an employee is required to report to, it also results in inefficiency and unproductivity on part of employees and also lack of discipline and resilience towards work. In the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, it becomes extremely necessary to talk about mental health and hygiene and the positive and ill impacts the gig structure is having. The gig structure is having on the individuals, particularly say employees. Various upsides that can be cited includes on part of employee, freedom to choose gigs or work as per his own discretion, will, mood, skills, thus enabling more acceptability and ownership towards work. He is also able to schedule his work and leisure as per his own will, resulting in upskilling himself or spending more time with his family or enrolling himself with his hobbies. Various downsides are similar to what I have already discussed, so I'll not discuss it later again. Another thing that needs to be understood in conjunction with the gig structure is remote working, and not in isolation. It cannot be understood in isolation with the gig structure. Remote working is basically a style of working in which the employees are working remotely, not from the traditional or conventional office environment or office cubicle, from anywhere, from either from their home or the co-working spaces or any place they find comfortable with. Here they are able to reduce the commotion of traveling to their office spaces or working from their designated cubicles. Also, one of the concepts that it is breaking through is the traditional notion of an appropriate workspace, as the skilled professionals are able to capitalize off their freedom towards work. It encompasses two important concepts, that is work from home and work from anywhere. There are basically 4 ways in which a person can work remotely. Firstly, he can choose to work majority of the days from his home or any place he finds convenience with. Secondly, he can choose to work secondly, he can also choose to work from co-working spaces, which are considered to be the productivity hubs, or where professionals from different domains come and interact and communicate with each other and share their ideas and notions. Thirdly, he can also choose for work and travel programs, where they can travel various continents and countries and work simultaneously. Various benefits this type of working offers include flexible lifestyle to employees, as they are able to schedule properly their work life and personal life. They are enjoying a better emotional and mental well-being, and thus also resulting in a better and renewed passion for their jobs. Many of the managers have noticed that the employees working remotely are found to be more productive and efficient as compared to the non-remote non-remotely working employees. It also results in cost savings on part of employer as well as on part of employer. He is not required to invest in huge infrastructure or office furniture. On part of employees, he is not required to incur the expenditure to move to the office spaces. Also, it is noticed that the people who are working remotely are found to be more indulgent and engaged towards their work. Another concept that becomes relevant while understanding the gig economy and the remote working is renting of assets. It is basically done with an attempt to bootstrap the existing financial structure or in an attempt of cost optimization. Here, the companies or the startups having greater innovative ideas, but lack of finance, who do not prefer to invest heftily in long-term fixed assets whose benefits do not accrue immediately but accrue over a larger period of time, prefer uh, these type of arrangements. Here they are able to have their customized assets at a comparatively reduced prices or cost.
ठीक है, अभी आप ये पॉसिबल है अगर आप लाउंज में ले जाओ तो मैं लिंक पर चेक कर लेती हूँ.
Various other benefits that this structure offers include offers includes liquidity. Here the firm is left with more of finances, more of cash with itself, thus able to make regular and timely payments to its suppliers and creditors and other people. Convenience here, depending on the relationship between the lessor and the lessee. The lessee can schedule his lease payments as per his own convenience and the availability of funds. Cost savings and tax benefits. It also provides cost savings and tax benefits in terms of the lease payments. In terms of the lease payments that the lessee is making can be used. Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are audible.
Saloni, audible. Continue.
Cost savings and tax benefits. It also provides cost savings and tax benefits to the employees as he is able to make deductions from his taxable income from the lease payments he is making. There is no risk of obsolescence resting with the lessee, as the ownership of the asset is with the lessor, and due to any technological advancement, the risk is to be faced by the lessor. Now, with the changing times and ever-changing social, political, and economic dynamics, it becomes extremely essential for an individual to hunt for ways that can add more value to his life, to his profession, as well as to his job. Talking specifically about professionals, we have to continuously hunt for ways that can help us to reduce our juggle of keeping a good upkeep between our personal and professional lives. Talking even more specifically about chartered accountants, many of the chartered accountants nowadays are able to provide majority of their assurance services, be it audit assignments or taxation or management consultancy, remotely to their global clients with the help of their quality services. Also, they are able to manage their work life properly, leading to sparing more time for their leisure, upskilling themselves or pursuing their hobbies and spending more time for themselves. Thus, concluding, I would like to say the three concepts, that is remote working, the gig structure, and the renting of assets in conjunction, can be considered as the present as well as the future of our generation. Signing off. Thank you.
Thank you, Saloni. Now, I request Ms. Veronica Khosla from Vadodara to present a paper on post-COVID reset in world economic order and India's role.
Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
you
you
are
are
audible.
audible.
Great. Okay, just a minute. I'll just share the screen. It's visible? The screen is visible?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Veronica, visible.
2020, pandemic strikes the world. And then we have hopefully once in a lifetime experience of lockdown. But then imagine the vaccine is rolled out globally, whole population is inoculated, and the world is unmasked. But then the reality strikes. What about the world economy? What about our own economy, and what is our nation's role in the future? A very good morning to Nilesh sir, session's chairman, fellow professionals, and distinguished members of the Institute. I'm Veronica Khosla, and I am presenting on the topic Impact of COVID, that is post COVID 19, in the world economic order and India's growth. While the pandemic did not initially start as an economic crisis, it certainly has created one. Global Competitiveness Report, which is released by World Economic Forum, analyzed 37 countries, and it found that the policymakers have shifted their focus from growth and productivity to long-term resilient future-ready markets and innovation. But this time, in the post-COVID economy, the commitment for better reset shall come not just from the government, not just from the policymakers, but from the general population. Moving on, I'm focusing in this paper on two specific sectors, digital industry and travel and tourism industry. When Michael Dell said, digital is the way that you can connect to anyone, anytime, anywhere, I think we all felt this in the year 2020. And certainly, this is the industry whose future outlook looks very promising. And if I were to give you specific numbers, Zoom Incorporated's owner, Eric Yuan, added $6.6 billion to his wealth in one day. Amazon's Jeff Bezos added $75 billion to his wealth in the year 2020. And if I were to give you a different kind of statistics, Sundar Pichai has said that combined users of Google Meet and Google Duos have increased 30 folds in this year. And it's not just one communication sector, it's the entertainment industry also which has been revolutionized. People now know what is binge watching, and the theater-going people are now shifting to OTT platforms. In last fortnight only, a 20 years old channel has to close down its operations because of the losses, and now its movement towards OTT platform HBO Max. The new launches which are lined up in the near future, for example, PM Vani or Reliance commitment to set up 5G in India, or if we talk about the 3 days back launch of 36 satellites by OneWeb to provide high-speed internet in India. It all indicates the intent for a digital industry in future. And this will boost the demand in digital sector for better employment of software developers, because we all need now different kind of platforms, customized platforms for businesses to work remotely. The second sector I focused on travel and hospitality, perhaps the most impacted sector. And even as we have joined this conference, the international sector for operating flights has taken a direct hit because of the new COVID strain found in UK. But in the face of adversity, we can either be better or we can become better. So thus we can have innovations in the sector. For example, we need to have a different kind of seating arrangements. We need to have a shift in the manner in which we are operating. For example, in Vadodara, Burger King and McDonald's are encouraging their customers only those orders which are being ordered for online and paid for online, and mostly takeaway orders. Now, emphasis is now being shifted to different kind of parameters. For example, safety, hygiene, and now the emphasis is how to change consumers' perception towards how safe it is to travel and how safe it is to eat out. But the challenge remains how to tide over the losses that they have incurred in the pandemic era. There will also be a shift in preferred tourist destination. I think we all have seen people are now Goa or Northeast states because these are comparatively safer rather than going off to international countries. And this is not just because of lack of flights. This is also because of the safety perception towards traveling abroad. McKinsey recently had a report, and on the basis of its tourism recovery model, it predicted that tourism revenue may not recover to the present levels up to 2023. And after that, it will start growing gradually. But hang in there, good news is there, because domestic tourism is expected to recover 1 or 2 years earlier than the outbound travel. And this is what we are seeing right now also. People are flocking off to the domestic destinations. So thus it will recover in 2021, and India here may have a different kind of advantage in form of medical tourism. So coming to India's role, what is India going to do it? Pharmacy of the World is the title that the world generously bestowed upon India when it provided medicines globally. Even now, there are 67 delegates of different countries visited India around a fortnight ago to monitor what is the current phase of vaccine development in India. Also, India here has the opportunity of grabbing the opportunity of filling the gap created by loss of China's role in international market. And thus, there is a shift of international companies to India and support from our allies. For example, Japan has listed India as a preferred relocation destination. This means that once the Japanese companies relocate from China to India, Japanese government will incentivize them. Companies like Tata and Apple have partnered to produce iPhones in India. Ola is going to set up its largest scooter manufacturing facility in India. But India has something to take care of. There's competition from other countries. And guess which ones? Indonesia, Vietnam. Vietnam is a huge textile manufacturing hub. And a lot of international textile manufacturing is being carried out there. Though India and Vietnam are engaged in import and export of basic raw material, this is where India needs to focus. So summing up, Socrates once said that the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on generating the new. Post-COVID world is going to be a different kind of world, the different economy, and people are going to have memories of what it was in the pre-COVID era and what happened in the COVID era. Policymakers here need to take care of people's sentiments while building on the economic prosperity. I end this presentation with wishes of hope and economic prosperity for India and the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Wonderful presentation. First of all, let me compliment all the three, paper writers: Venu Sharma, Saloni Jain from Surat, and Veronica from Baroda. Fantastic presentations. And at their age, I could hardly be, making any presentations. Of course, I would have wished, all of us could have wished it could have been a large, physical gathering where they could have made a presentation. So their fear to be on the stage, which is of course not there from the very good, presentations which they have made, is very visible. Coming to the topics specific, first is the monetary and fiscal policy in the last 3 decades and the way forward. I found Venu Sharma's presentation to have very good charts, etc. I'm not too sure. I missed the initial part of Venu's presentation when the technology glitched, and whether she mentioned about the objectives of the monetary and the fiscal policy or not. But be that as it may, I think she covered it reasonably well. I think our monetary and fiscal policies have evolved from the time of our independence, even prior to independence. For example, from 1949 to 69, we had the 5-year plans. Then 1969 to 1985, we have more sort of, nationalization of banks and inward-looking things which we are doing. And then we had the period of 1985 to 1998, in which we had a 1990 was the tipping point where I think we had to pledge our gold to meet the balance of payments. So that was the tipping point, which sort of led to the liberalization of policies, etc., which Venu did refer to: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And from that time, 1998 to 2015, have been completely, different, I would say, monetary policy and fiscal policy. But the sum and substance of the fiscal policy in India is twofold. One is growth of the economy, and second is in India we have got a huge focus on social justice. If you see all the governments, whether it's Congress, whether it's NDA, whether it's BJP, all are talking of social justice because we have a lot of inequality across the country. So there are two focus. One is growth of the economy, and how do we have social justice or social, this thing. So these are twin-pronged things. Some may feel it is different, but in my view, it is absolutely logical. And the whole idea of the government is how do they increase employment? How do we have stable, price levels, whether it is for goods or services? How do we reasonably good growth levels of 6%, 8%, 10% per annum growth in the economy? How do we have equilibrium in the balance of payment? Balance of payment is the difference of the foreign exchange, import exports, and I would say the capital inputs outputs, the remittances received from our Indian labor which is abroad or Indian diaspora which is abroad. So it's a final, how much is the net? Generally, there always been negative. Reason is one of the major imports India does is oil and or the energy, and that's why it is all the balance of payment has always been negative, which has been filled up by the capital infusions, whether it is the capital market flows or whether the Indian, I would say diaspora, which is in Middle East or abroad, sending remittances back to the families in India. So that is keeps the balance of payment, on a reasonable this thing. So this is broadly, friends, this thing. One key aspect I think which should have been brought in by Venu is how the tax rates, one of the revenue have gone down from the 1970s, etc. When it was around one time it was 95% income tax rate, for corporates, but on an average 70-75%, and then it was brought down to 30% in the last couple of decades. So this is another major, difference where the tax compliance and needs to improve more. Another factor which I think, which of course is not being written right now, I can just generally share out of my experiences. In my view, the focus on the expenditure of the government is not there. The expenditure of governing the country or governing income tax, governing indirect tax or whatever has to go down. Now it will go down with the GST, with technology being used. But on the other departments, how do we, people have just filled up, the productivity is less. So I think the focus on expenditure management of the government has to be there. And then we come to what is the next, target, what are the reforms required. I think our percentage of household investment in the capital market is one of the lowest in the world, I would say from developed countries. We are becoming developed now from developing. So the percentage of households getting into capital markets has to go up so that we are not dependent on foreign funds. But see, we are starved of capital, so we need more capital for, I would say, industry. Second is how do we reduce the cost of credit? The intermediation cost is used. For example, we are getting 4% rate of interest on our FD, but if you go to borrow, you'll be borrowing at say 10% or 11%. So there's a 600 basis points cost of intermediation, which is there. That is, I'm saying of banks. If you are borrowing privately, it may be 15% or so. So that dichotomy is how do we reduce the intermediation cost for credit, I think is another focus area which we need to look at. And from the government perspective, how do we streamline public finance for more efficient allocation of government resources? Of course, this government has done a wonderful job on the direct benefit of the subsidies, etc. And I hope that continues so that the intermediation cost goes down. At one point of time, Rajiv Gandhi, the erstwhile Prime Minister, said only 20% of the funds meant for the poor are reaching them. Balance 80% are getting eaten away in the interim phase. So that this government under our respectable Prime Minister Narendra Modi has done a fantastic job, let me tell you, on the direct benefit transfer, and that's the reason of the popularity of the government amongst the poor and the needy people. How do we monetize the government asset? Government has got a lot of assets, whether it is coal, whether it is airwaves, 5G is going to come, whether it is all the PSUs which are there. How do they monetize those assets? Is the another focus area which is the government has to look at to reduce the deficit. See, today almost 50% of the government revenue is getting into interest payment. Whatever borrowing government does. So we need to reduce the interest payment which the government pays, which every year so they are raising lakhs of crores, which was pointed out by Venu. But how much of it can be reduced from the interest payment? So that can go into for the better, I would say, infrastructure for the citizens, better roads, rails, etc., whatever it may be, and for the poor people. So that's another, and how do we still simplify and rationalize taxes? Though the rate of taxes are low, but I think the tax governance still needs a lot to be desired. The government is trying to use technology to improve on the tax governance, but the pain in tax compliance has to go down. though it may have some impact on us as our profession, but I think in the interest of the nation, I think it has to be simplified. The amount of manas which have got wasted in technology as far as GST implementation is concerned from 2017, I think there has to be some accountability therefore. And I think that's about it in the first paper. On the second paper on the gig economy, I think what is getting into the, it was very well presented by Saloni. Let me share that I really liked her voice modulation and the confidence. Venu, you have to little bit work on your English speaking. I would say you spoke very well, but again, some hesitation was being felt, or maybe the possibly, if of course, let me tell you, at your age, I would not have been able to speak as much as you did, Venu. But if you compare, Saloni looks like a person who is speaking regularly, more confident, more mature. Only one deficit I observed in the presentation, that Saloni gave positive side of the remote working, but one has to highlight the negative side also, so which of course I will try to cover that. So that was the only thing. Of course, it's again a suggestion. It's not a critique. It's just a suggestion for your own this thing. So on the gig economy, the thanks to the standardization of the technology as well as a lot of operating matters, I think it's become very easy to work part time, etc. And it's going to improve, increase. But when it comes to say the CA profession, there's still going to be challenge because there's a lot of individualism. For example, let's take an accounting standards. There's a lot of subjectivity. There is estimation, assumptions, which are there in income tax. Also, there are some judgment calls which are to be made. There are options. There are case laws. But over a period of time, this will still become standardized. All these options will get reduced. For example, IFRS or Ind AS or the accounting standard we follow in India is more, I would say, principle based. So it so I don't know how much of it can be sort of put on technology, but US GAAP is more rule based. So technology, any rule based thing can be put to technology and can be done very well and by anywhere and any place. So their application of mind is less on assumptions, on judgments, etc., on estimation. Be that in that case, but what I'm feeling is it's a no-brainer that, for example, we used to do manual accounting. Then we saw software like Tally and all coming completely taking away the manual accounting. And today the time has come, even a thing like Tally, etc., will be archived. We have seen SAP, even those will be archived. We'll have bots and robots working and doing normal accounting. For example, the moment here in Gujarat State Electricity Board bill comes, it will automatically post to, first of all, to the technology will post it to the electricity expense. Only a checker. Right now, we have got a maker and a checker. Possibly the maker role will go away, which technology will do as far as accounting is concerned or auditing is concerned. And this rule-based thing, more and more it is going to be standardized. I think it's going to be used, more AI, more of artificial intelligence is going to be used, and which will help again the gig economy. It will be easier to work, I would say, on flexi timings, on part time, the moment things keep on getting standardized. As far as we as CAs are concerned, what is the new, generation professional of CA we need to do? As I told you, one is we need to see how AI is going to impact us. I'm very clear on accounting and auditing, it's going to impact us. I think data analytics will be the thing of the future. We've got blockchain coming in. Blockchain is the data will be pre-authorized and will have authorized things. So the relevance of what it will go down. When a blockchain data moves through a blockchain, the requirement for verification will go down. The subjectivity will go down. So the need of audit may go down. And another area is cyber security. Of course, these are the four areas, ABCD as we call it, of technology. I think our profession is going to be impacted a lot. And you as youngsters, my dear students, you can ride the wave of this transformation. What's going to happen to the industry? People like us, for me, for example, I've been 35 years in profession. It may be difficult to change, but you can, how do you automate whatever work we are doing, the accounting work, the audit work, more and more? How do we do more of analytical work, data? And we have started to do a lot of analytics. So I think you will be the right people to do that as far as the new generation of the professional CAs are concerned. On the remote working, as I mentioned, Saloni pointed out all the positives. On the negatives is, what I have been observing is most of this remote working is more, I would say, business-like. You get into the Zoom meeting, you only attend. But a lot of things, for example, if I'm a director somewhere, or even as an auditor, you need to smell something. When you go personally, you smell a lot of things. You talk to people, the other employees there. If something is wrong, if you're a director, you not only meet the top people, you meet the CEO minus one level people, and you smell things. You just interact, informally, and you can get to know a lot of things. So that is not happening in this remote working or the technology-based working. Number two, existing work execution is happening, albeit with little bit more time. But if I'm looking at new work, still I think we are still not got into that. I would say getting new work without a physical meeting. I think the Zoom meeting has got its own limitations. Seeing the chemistry of the person, the body language of the person it's not so visible on the, I would say, the virtual meeting. So I think it will evolve. So that is the flip side. You can't interact. For example, you need some guidance over a cup of coffee on some other matters. So it's not possible in the sense with your colleagues, with your seniors, etc. So I think there are some handicaps of remote. I think going forward, it will be a mix of remote and physical working, where people may say come few days in a year to a few days in a week. I'm sorry, not in a year, maybe 2 days a week to work physically. 3 days they will, 3 or 4 days they'll work remotely. Some said, and it will be mostly hot desks. There will be no fixed desks for people. It will be hot desks, and by rotation, people will come and so a lot of things will be done. So that's I felt about the on this particular topic. I'm just seeing on the renting of assets. It reminded me of some very funny incidents. Let me share with you. My son shifted to Bangalore, working for a company in April, last March 2019. And I visited him after a month. He rented a flat over there. Renting a flat is okay, normal when you go to a new place. And I visited after a month or so, and we are just chatting up. Friends, there's a teapot which we then in a drawing room. You've got a center table or a teapot, as you call it, where when any guests come, you have your tea, coffee, and a lot of snacks, etc. on the teapot. There was a rug underneath, just almost the size of slightly bigger than the teapot. And during conversation, my son told me, "Dad, I've got this rug on rent at 20 rupees a month." And I laughed. But students, I'll tell you, I'm staying in Mumbai. I got my own house. I don't think any single asset of mine is rented. Everything is owned. And here I see my son, a 20 rupees a month rug is rented out. So I really laughed, how the transition is happening amongst the generations. And not only that, apart from the furniture, we're very sparse. Landlord had to balance everything. Most of them was sort of rented out. And the importance is this companies, the rental companies, are maintaining the thing also very well, because assuming my son gave back the assets, they had to place it with some other person. So the maintenance also was better of the rented assets. So that is as far as the rental economy is concerned, just to sort of share with you. Again, in remote working, in a place like Mumbai, we have challenge where we got small houses. There are disturbances. This pandemic, where the local trains are closed, like people working, there'll be some noise coming from the back. Somebody in the kitchen, say it's a 1-room kitchen or a 2-room kitchen, some noise coming up from somewhere, somebody working, and that was one challenge. Second challenge of remote working, which I have observed, is for working women. I think a big challenge. When they used to come to office, the children were taken care of with the other family members, maybe mother-in-law, maybe sister-in-law, whatever. But since they're working from home, my impression, I may be wrong, is they need to look after the family also, the kids, plus extra mother-in-law. Since they're at home, working from home, the mother-in-law sister will expect the working woman to, take care of the children or maybe the other household chores. So, in my view, this has been slightly not been very conducive for the working woman. I may be wrong, but that's been my limited experience in my office. I wanted to share with you. Another thing which has happened for the future, I think, CAs, for the future is how do we work? How do we have digitally work in, I would say jointly. So new software, MS Office Teams, OneDrive. How do we have safety of data, virtual private networks? The way we are working has changed substantially, and I think that's for all of us to and the security needs have gone up. So that was as far as the topic of gig economy, remote working, renting assets, and how the new generation professional will look like. Coming to the third topic of post-COVID reset in the world economic order and role. Again, Veronica, despite the initial technical glitch where we saw her on the screen for a few minutes, when she came back, there was no tension at all of the fact that she was not able to speak earlier. Very, very well composed, spoke very confidently. And let me tell you, amongst the three presentation, I like the presentation from I would say the reason, the color combination, the blue color, it's a corporate color, a blue color. So it's a personal liking, I may be wrong, but I like the style of presentation, the PPT. So let me, on the topic of post-COVID in the world and the India's role, I think India is very, very well poised. We are today the fifth largest economy in the world, and we are tipped to be the top three. We have a huge market, that is number one, which everyone knows. Most importantly, thanks to the COVID, I think the whole world is up in arm against China. I'm saying, though it will be very difficult to displace China in the immediate, but the dependency of China was so huge for all the large corporations, whether it's an Apple, whether it is any other company manufacturing or software or whatever it may be. But that will go down. Then there is no brainer. I think you look at Australia, people are angry on China. So there's no way the way China has been behaving, especially with this. I'm really amazed and surprised. How could China have such less number of COVID cases? Maybe, of course, the data is a challenge in China. Whereas in India, US, UK, it's been rampant in the pandemic, and you're keeping it in new strains. So it is a very clear, message down the world. Inside, people are angry on China, and the things will shift. The manufacturing or whatever today, the way dominance of China is, it is going to be, I think this has been the tipping point in the history of China. The way they have behaved or whatever, I think this is the tipping point this year, and which will have a change. It may take some time for India to, become the manufacturing or the service hub. So that is one key thing. Second, there will be a lot of focus on public health and local chains. So a lot of management shift back to respective countries, but there will be de-risking out. Instead of China, say people say, I want to do something in Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, India, Malaysia. So wherever they've got good labor and this thing. So that is going to happen. And amongst the industries, I think Veronica mentioned on the IT industry. So just to give you one case, just a couple of days back, you saw Infosys got an order of $3.2 billion, which is almost 24,000 crore rupees for 8 years from Daimler-Benz. I think the Indian IT companies are going to run, that's the next wave which is going to happen, which is going to come in, and especially the ones which are focusing on digital. For example, recently there was an IPO of a company called Happiest Minds, Ashok Sutar. I'm told more than 90% of their software is on digital. You look at Infosys, which was, I think, stagnating for last many years, and suddenly since last 1 or 2 years, after Salil Parekh has joined in, the focus on digital has gone in, and I'm told almost 45% of their businesses, they're focusing on digital. So that's going to improve. You look at Surat, I think Saloni is from Surat. The feedback I got is even diamond industry, which was languishing before the pandemic, suddenly there's a huge demand from US, and since a lot of the workers have pushed off from Surat to their respective things, there's huge demand and it has kick-started. We will again on the services front will be doing well. Tourism. One thing which I sort of slightly disagree with Veronica is on the tourism front, where I think the estimate is by 2023. Of course, those are better people to estimate. But I'm on the board of Thomas Cook, which is a travel tourism company, and my belief is once in 2021, once the vaccination happens, I'm taking till December 21. I think people are going to go back to the vengeance. People have been, cooped up in their houses or in their localities, and there is a huge inner, I would say, desire to move out. Whether initially it will be domestic, as rightly pointed out in 2021 and now 20 and 21, whether it is Goa, Northeast, or even nearby, I would say whether it's Saputara or Mahabaleshwar or whatever may be near our places. But after some time, it will be huge. People will need to go back to international tourism. For example, currently also Dubai and Maldives, which is open for Indian tourists, having huge traction of Indian tourists going there. So I'm feeling that there is going to be huge this thing in those areas. Pharma, another area where I think where we India will do well is logistics. I don't know how many of you observed. I was amazed during the pandemic, after April and May, maybe somewhere in May itself, how Amazon and all these people got their act together. Something you order in the night, you get it next day morning. Something you get in 4-5 hours. I'm really amazed how the logistics sector is working. And in my view, this is one sector. And every day, like my son and daughter-in-law used to observe whatever we needed, and used to get 3, 4, 5, 6 parcels every day from different service providers. So the logistic business is going to do exceedingly well. Of course, automobiles has picked up because everybody wants their own car or two-wheeler now. Thanks to the pandemic, they want to avoid public travel. So that maybe it's a temporary phase, but I think not only in India but world over, so India can supply automobiles and two-wheelers to the world. Realty, which was again a laggard, the real estate sector has again bounced back. So I think it's going to do very well because people need. Suppose I was living in a one-room kitchen. Now I'm there. My wife is working. I'm working. My two children say they're studying. They want to study. So we need different rooms so that there's no disturbance. I was talking to my hardware supplier who supplies hardware to our office, and he said, Nilesh bhai, I have done so much of earning in this. My next 5 years earnings are taken care of in this pandemic period of 6 months. The reason is people needed laptops, iPad for the children education, for their own work from home. Initially, say if I had one laptop we were sharing across the family, now you needed either a laptop or a iPad across all the 2, 3, 4 members in the family for children's education or for. So I think that hardware business has done really well. Prices have increased. So that is as far as the India's role. I think India's role, and even from the government perspective, if you look at the fantastic work done by our current government under the leadership of Narendra Modi and the whole team, the external affairs, the way we have fantastic ties with UAE, with US, continuing with Russia, etc., France, UK. I think tremendous job being done. The focus on anti-terror activities of the terror activities being conducted by Pakistan and China. The fact that we had the gumption to stand up with China on the in the Ladakh area, and even now we are not resolved. I think it's a new, I would say, dimension which has come in our foreign and external policy, and we're getting good traction world over. I'm sure India is going to do very well as far as the in the new world economic order. India's role will have a much larger role. We do very well, and I'm very, very confident of that. So that was as far as the 3 topics were concerned. The organizers, can I get another 10-15 minutes? I know we started late. There are some technical glitches, so I'll just speak a little bit generally.
Yes, sir. Proceed, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Friends, since your students, I wanted to, apart now from the 3 topics, again, my compliments to Venu, Saloni, and Veronica for the fantastic presentation. Just few tips for you as a past president and what I said, since you are in that initial phase of your student career, or maybe you'll get into career. Friends, first and foremost is please focus on practical training. I think whatever you read, whatever you understand, unless you apply to practice, I think it will be meaningless. I'll just give a small example. I was an expert in mathematics in my 10th and 12th. I got 147 out of 150 in 10th and maybe a very good marks in 12th also. Just a couple of marks less than the total marks of the paper. Today, if you ask me anything, I'm not able to tell you anything except the topic names. Reason is I'm not putting it to practice. So academically, you may be brilliant, but unless you put it to practice, it's going to be a waste. And this 3 years of articleship makes you do that. So put to practice whatever you're studying, whether it is accounting, auditing, company law, direct tax, indirect tax, anything, whatever, all these subjects are relevant, put it to practice or visualize, assuming you're not doing that area. Suppose you're only one niche area of tax, but in audit, what you can do. So unless you put it to practice, I think it will be meaningless. So this is the game changer, this practical training amongst all the courses across the world, not only in India. Even in US, your practical training happens after you finish your CPA, not during your. So kindly, focus on practical and absorb the maximum, even at the cost of your other studies. Even if you give your exam 6 months, heavens are not going to fall. But suppose currently is the peak time of December where all the tax audit returns are there. Please put your mind, soul, heart, and the amount of learning you'll get out of practical application. Nobody in life, and I can challenge you, friends. Even, of course, I wish all of you pass your CA exams, but assuming by chance you don't pass, but if you've got good practical training, your career, nobody can stop you from growing. In Bombay, we have a huge need for CA finalists. The reason is they don't jump more, whether it is CA firms, whether it's BPO, KPOs, whether it's industry, everybody not CA needs CA finalists, even if they're not past CA, because they'll not jump the ship so easily like a chartered accountant. That is the first thing. Please absorb maximum out of a practical training. Second is concentration. I think your generation is 100 times smarter than when I was your age. You've got the information at your fingertips, a fantastic presentation. You saw, a lot of data available on Google, etc. But what you need for CA is concentration, especially during examination. So please, this is the biggest mobile which I'm showing. I'm a slave of the mobile, but I don't have to give my CA exams. If you want to pass CA, with flying colors, what you need to do when you're studying, this has to be in lock and key. Ideally, for 3-4 months, you can just close it. There's nothing better than it. But assuming you cannot do without it, messages and all are there. Whilst you are studying, whilst you have kept your book open, this should not be near you. This has to be in lock and key. Only during lunchtime or tea time, look at some urgent messages. All your friends and family should be informed that you are not going to look at it during the study time. Because what happens is, if it is near you, you're reading something and CA is very, concentrated. And suddenly a signal comes from all this, even if it is on silent, your mind will get distracted. And CA, you cannot pass with a distracted mind. You need full concentration on your subject. So please keep it away. Next is, whilst we are coming out of this new course, we went to industry, what is required in industry, how chartered. So the feedback we got is CAs are much better technically than MBAs. But where MBA score is, CAs are problem finders, MBAs are problem solvers. So I want you, who is listening, about 154 people are listening to this right now. I want you to be problem solvers. During the course of your training, you'll come across various problems. This is not right in accounting, this is not right in tax, indirect tax, or whatever. Based on your understanding, please go with possible solutions to your senior or to your principal. Okay, this is the problem. This is you applied your mind. These are the solutions which are possible. And tell the senior will bring his experience to the table, your principal or your senior, as the case may be, and he'll guide you. Okay, amongst the various options you are given of a solution, this is the right solution based on his experience. So please don't only find problems, be problem solvers, which will help you as an edge in the industry, number one. Number two, we were told, is chartered accountants generally good lone rangers. They are not team workers. So please have the ability to work in teams. You go on audits together, deadlines, etc. That will give you a lot of, so we need to work in teams. Third is, the feedback is we lack leadership skills. Though we have got this AICITSS, soft skills program and all, my request would be, please grab opportunities how you can hone your leadership skills, which is required in the industry. And lastly, but not the least, is like presentation and communication of CAs is less than the MBAs. Because in MBA, what happens, every week they have got presentation in the classroom. They work in teams and they go out with the presentation. So please grab opportunity in your office, in your client place, wherever you can. Please make present, please communicate. Only practice makes a man perfect. So please, focus on that is my request to you. Another thing is the fear of failure. I think many people are not joining with your other, students you're touch with. Please don't be afraid of failures. I think failure is a stepping stone to success. I have failed my intermediate exams very badly. I was a very good student in 10th, 12th, CA entrance, but intermediate I failed miserably. But it helped me, 1 month I became a Devdas, a CA is not fit for me, etc., etc. But after that, I said, what the hell, I'll show CA that I can do, the profession that I can do CA. And then there was no looking back. And it helped me. The fact that you fail early in your career helps you in life to face other failures also and come back. So as it is said, in a boxing ring, it's not the person who falls down who fails. The person who comes back, stands up and again fights is the person who will succeed. So you need to focus on failure. Not be worried about the failure. That's part and parcel of life. In course of life, you'll come across failures. See, the fact that in your younger generation, your parents take care to don't allow you to fail should not, in life, there will be failures and you need to come above it. Have a writing practice before, when you go for exams, please write. I've observed all of us are working on computers and on our mobiles, but unfortunately, our exams are writing. So at least 10-15 days before the exam, please start writing whatever you can so that there's a good writing practice. I would recommend please meditate. I started meditation at the age of 25. After I became CA at the age of 21. I started meditating at the age of 25. Again, I was that time thinking I should do after 50 years of age. But this pandemic has proven that those who meditate, whether it is professionals, whether it is students, it has helped them handle the pandemic very well. I follow Vipassana meditation. You can follow whatever path you want, any path. I think the goal is same. Whether it is SSY meditation, whether it's art of living, anything which you like. Plus, please meditate. It will help you in your studies also, and it will help you in your work also. Whatever they call it, mindfulness or meditation. So everybody is talking of it right now in the pandemic. But please work on the meditation also, and please take care of health. When you're in young age, you will not find any issues. 10, 12, 14 hours of desk work or reading work or whatever. But even whilst you're studying or whilst you're working, please get up and walk. Whatever, please take care of your health. You do yoga, gymming, swimming, whatever. Again, your choice. I'm not recommending, but you need to be physically fit. It helps you in your studies. Helps you remaining, more focused. So please do that. Friend, with this, I am on the verge of conclusion. Again, if there are 2 minutes, I will just have a couple of saying. Tough times don't last, only tough people do. I spoke that earlier. So CA makes of all of us tough. You are the only one who can limit your greatness. So if any of the limitation, it's in your attitude, in your aptitude. Focus on your aptitude, focus on your attitude, which will take you to greater altitudes, which is the theme of this conference. And skill is developed only by hours and hours of hard work. You cannot just read. As I told you, practical experience is absolutely a must, which you need to do that. With this, I would want to conclude. I'll take 2 minutes. There is a very good saying which has been posted on the Pune branch. When you go to the Pune branch of ICAI of Swami Vivekanand, and I would want I want to address this to all of you students who are here. स्वामी विवेकानंद जी के सपनों का युवक चाहिए ऐसा. It's in Hindi. I'll convert to English a little bit for those who are not from the Hindi, can't understand. चेहरे पे तेज हो, and when say युवक, it includes युवती also, युविकास also. So there is no, it is gender neutral. Whenever I speak, चेहरे पे तेज हो, there should be radiance on your face. The fact that you're sitting so much in front of computer should not make it drowsy or sluggish. देह में शक्ति हो, there should be strength in your body. So as I said, physical fitness is very important. मन में उत्साह हो, you should always be enthusiastic. बुद्धि में विवेक हो, you should be humble in your intelligent but yet humble, not to be snobbish. हृदय में करुणा हो, there should be compassion in your heart. मातृभूमि पे प्रेम हो, which is of course but obvious, you should be loving your country. इंद्रियों पे संयम हो, you should be controlling your senses. You've got various senses, 5, 6 senses, whether it's tongue, ears, smell, and much more. So control on your senses. मन जिसका स्थिर, mind has to be stable. So that gives the importance of meditation. As I told you, Vipassana meditation will help you stabilize your mind, help you improve your concentration. Any of the meditation techniques also is okay. Whether it's Gayatri mantra, if you're Jains, Naukar mantra, anything. But it will all help you stabilize your mind. Atma Vishwas Dhrad ho, there should be self-confidence, there should be determination with you. Ichha Shakti Prabal ho, your willpower has to be strong. Dhadas ka bal ho, you should have initiative. You take initiative in whatever. We saw these 3 young ladies taking initiative in speaking. I wish all 150 of you should be taking initiatives in your life. Sihi jaisa nirbhay ho, you should be fearless like a lion. Dhyay jiska uncha ho, your aim has to be always high. Satya jiska Ishwar ho, I need not say, truth is God. Always be truthful. Vyasno se jo mukt ho, please don't take yourself on any vices. You're at a young age of your life, whether it is any vices, whether it's cigarettes, whether it's drugs, please be away from it. It's going to spoil your life. Whether it is drinking, today is a fashion. You see so many serials and I would say films with, the drinking has become very, it's a social district, but it should not become a vice. Jeevan mein shist ho, there should be discipline in your life. If you're disciplined, you'll definitely succeed. Vani jiski madhur ho, your tongue has to be sweet. And this is one thing which I have learned, how you can communicate the bluntest of the blunt takes to the opposite party in a way that the person takes it smilingly. I'm still learning. I have not reached expertise in that. I've seen a lot of my seniors using this technique in a lot of discussion and negotiations. So your tongue has to be sweet. मानवता ही जाती हो. Humanity is your only religion. गुरुजनों के आदर हो. You should be respecting your gurus, whether it's your parents, your principals, your teachers. पालकों पे श्रद्धा हो. Faith in your guardians. दिन दुखियों का मित्र हो. Helpful to the downtrodden. सेवा में जो तत्पर हो. So a lot of youngsters have helped to reach this particular conference, to come out of this conference, their voluntary service. My hats off to them. So you also need to do seva in whatever you can. So what you are in life is thanks to the whole community. So you need to pay back by doing seva. ईश्वर पर भक्ति हो. You should be always have faith in God. जीवन में नीति हो. Your life should always have values. You should have principles in your life. It cannot be lack of values or lack of principles. चारित्र जिसका शुद्ध हो. Your character has to be pure. It cannot be impure. वही आदर्श युवक है, वही आदर्श युवती है. So that is Swami Vivekananda. I wish all of you who are listening to this take in all these traits of what Swami Vivekananda wanted all the youth of India to be. I wish all of you to bring these facets of characteristics within you. Wish you a fantastic career. Wish you first of all become successful CAs, success in your careers. May God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are so much delighted and honored to attain the knowledge from you.
Friends, there is one announcement that ebooks have been sent to your respective mail IDs and the link for the same have been sent in the chat box. Please go through the same.
We appreciate and acknowledge the tough task done by the judges of this session, CA Chirag Bakshi and CA Bharat Gajjar. Thank you, sir.
May I now invite Ms. Janvi Bhave, MCM, Vikasa Vadodara, to propose a formal vote of thanks for this session.
Thank you, MOC. Hello, everyone. This is Janhavi Bhave, Editorial Head of Vikasa Vadodara. Firstly, I would like to thank our session chairman, CA Nilesh Vikamse sir, past president ICAI, for his valuable presence. I would also thank to our session judge, CA Chirag Bakshi sir and CA Bharat Gajjar sir for giving their unbiased critics to the paper presenters. Thank you, CA Hitesh Agrawal sir, immediate past chairman, Vadodara branch of WIRC of ICAI, for the opening remarks. I cannot push less upon the fact that selecting papers from such an insightful submissions was a tedious task. I would also like to congratulate and thank our paper presenters for being selected, for imparting knowledge to us as well as our audience. I would lastly thank all the students who submitted their insightful papers and for being a part of this conference. Thank you, dear audience, for your vigilance and attention. All the best. Over to you, MOC.
Thank you, Janvi.
Now we are going to enter in the networking area using launch feature. You can network with other students or can sit on the table with your friends and interact with them.